Hey YouTube, Skarpio here. This week we're talking about ancient summoning, but first, a word from our sponsor. The summoning skill was introduced to RuneScape back in 2008. Since then, the skill has accumulated a total of 100 different familiars. Many of these familiars are useful to PVM, but now we have a new skill that has added 7 new familiars through ancient summoning. A quick note before getting into ancient summoning. You actually don't need the archaeology level to summon any of the new familiars if you buy the pouches. So if money is no issue, then your summoning level is the only thing holding you back. Otherwise, you will need to unlock ancient summoning if you plan to make your own pouches. I won't go into too much detail about unlocking. The two requirements are level 68 archaeology and completing the Dagon Bye Mystery in the Infernal Source. For guides on leveling up archaeology and completing the mystery, check out the archaeology Discord server or the wiki pages down below in the description. After you have unlocked ancient summoning, you will need to make binding contracts. To make these, take blue charms, pouches, spirit shards, blood of Orcus, and hellfire metals to a summoning obelisk. You'll receive these red pouches that stack in your inventory called binding contracts. To turn these into pouches, you need to fight the creature with the binding contracts in your inventory. You can then take the pouches to a summoning obelisk and turn them into scrolls. But before you go and kill all the monsters to create all the pouches, I'm sure you want to know which ones are worth your time. Well, to start, 2 out of the 7 ancient summoning familiars aren't combat familiars. The Water Fiend helps archaeology, and I do recommend making those. And the Gargoyle helps mining. The lowest familiar at level 45 summoning is the Hellhound. This familiar has a passive effect that absorbs 10% of any damage dealt to you by taking the hit itself. This means you get a 10% damage reduction for 20,000 hit points. When activating the scroll, you will heal the familiar for 10% of its max health. I tried this familiar out for a couple of kills at Rax. I didn't really notice the 10% decrease in damage, but it was low rage Rax. I also found the scroll completely useless since in between kills, I'll heal the familiar at the crystal in the PVM hub. I don't see myself using this familiar, but if you know of a great use for it, let me know down below. The next combat ancient summoning familiar you'll unlock is at level 73 summoning, the Blood Reaver. This familiar will passively deal 25% of your healing amount as damage to your target. The scroll will transfer 10% of the familiar's max health to you. I also tried this familiar at Rax. I had to be careful not to heal while Rax's web shield was down or a mirrorback spider was out. I don't see a great use for this familiar either. If you know of a great boss or situation where this familiar is perfect, let me know down below. At 85 summoning, you can summon the Abyssal demon familiar. This familiar will teleport to your target and deal damage. Its scroll will bind and teleblock the target for 9.6 seconds. I didn't try this one at Rax since he can't be stunned or bound, but I do see this familiar being very useful to PKers, since it'll stun and teleblock a person in the wildy, freeing up the first attack to be a stunned punisher or something like that. At 90 summoning, you can summon the Kal'gerion demon familiar. This familiar doesn't have a passive ability. The scroll will provide the player, familiar, and nearby players a 5% critical strike buff for 9.6 seconds. The scroll, however, will drain the familiar's special ability bar. This means to use the scroll back to back or constantly, you need to keep drinking summoning potions to refill the bar. I tried but failed miserably at Rax with this familiar, but not at the fault of using it. I think the scroll would be best used during a damage boosting ultimate right before you use your hardest hitting threshold. But like the others, I don't see myself using this familiar often. If you do use this familiar, use a small override. The click box for this familiar is massive, and you might click on your familiar by accident. And finally, what you've all been waiting for. At level 96 summoning, you can summon the Ripper Demon. Now, if you've fought these before, you know that they're tough and can deal a lot of damage. The familiar is no different. The Ripper Demon will passively increase your damage as your target's health decreases, and its scroll ability is very much like their instant kill when fighting them, and deals up to 350% damage of its max hit. Between the scroll and its quick melee attack that has a chance to hit 2 to 3 times, the Ripper Demon will deal more damage than the Steel Titan, making this one very overpowered familiar. The RS guy has a great video showing off the Ripper Demon at different bosses. I suggest you watch his video just to see examples of how much damage this familiar can do. But this super OP familiar shouldn't be used at every boss. My first example is Rax, which you'll notice I don't have any footage of me using the Ripper Demon there. That's because I don't want all that damage reflected back to me when Rax's web shield is down. And Rax isn't the only boss or monster that can reflect damage back to you. During Virago's Phase 2, he'll use Reflect for 9.6 seconds. Don't take this familiar to hard mode General Gerarder either. He can put himself in a defensive stance and reflect back half the damage that he takes. And definitely, don't take this familiar to Frost Dragons. They have a mechanic that spawns a glowing blue ball around the dragon and will reflect back all the damage back to you. I see all these examples as great times to kill yourself by trying to deal too much damage, so don't kill yourself. You also can't bring this familiar to Kriara since he can't be attacked with melee in the first place. No matter if you're new to PVM or a seasoned PVMer, you should definitely join our Discord server. Come talk PVM, hang out, ask questions, and answer questions for other people. Let me know down below which familiar you're going to take to your next boss. I'm going to keep rolling with the archaeology theme and talk about relic powers next week. Make sure you all stay healthy, like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.